Hi everyone, it's Lolita and this video is about an introduction to portraiture by way of drawing a skull in frontal perspective. And we're going to be working with the basic dimensions and relative proportions of 5 by 7 by 7, where 5 is we're going to be using as the relative proportion of the width of the head, and then 7 inches will be the vertical measurement of the head, and the depth will be 7 inches. But for the purposes of the frontal perspective skull, we're only going to be using the vertical and the horizontal dimension. It's not going to really portray that much depth, and we don't need the depth dimension. So we're going to make a rectangle. Started out with a rectangle that is 5 inches wide and 7 inches long, and we're going to subdivide that. So we have halfway through the one direction, we're going to have the vertical axis, and that'll be the axis of symmetry, and then halfway down we will have a horizontal axis, and that will be the axis that the orbital area is going to be centered at. So that's halfway down in that rectangle is where the eye sockets are located. And then we're going to use the basic shapes of a circle and a oval within that circle, and the circle will represent this part of the head where it's the skull, and then the oval will represent the face, and then you will build and deviate from that. So enjoy. So I've started my drawing already off of camera, and what we're doing here is we're using the proportions of 5 by 7 by 7. And this is a setup for my frontal proportion or my frontal view skull. And the first thing that I did was I went in and made a rectangle that is 7 inches tall and 5 inches wide, and that gives me my 5 by 7 inch relative proportions of the skull. And then I went in and started drawing in a circle here. So I'm going to finish that up, and then I'm going to put an oval inside of that circle. So this is about where I feel it would be going in here. And so there's my circle, and that is going to represent the larger bulk of the skull, the part that houses the brain. And then to start adding the part where there is a jawline, I'm going to make an oval inside of that circle here, and just using pretty much the same contour, just going a little flatter because it's oval. Then I'm going to just go a little flatter in here, and then look at this side here to try to get a sense of symmetry. And you see I've already subdivided my rectangle in half. This is at 3.5 inches, so that's halfway there, and then this is at 2.5 inches, the halfway point here and the halfway point here. And that allows me to retain symmetry. And because, again, remember, this is a lesson for beginning students, so go easy on yourself and use the proportions. Don't rely on just plain old guessing. You've got proportions that you can actually use. And so there, I feel comfortable with that being my oval. I can go back in and clean that up a little, erase that out. I'm still going to leave in my halfway marks. I feel like I could play with this shape down here a little bit more. And okay, so now I've got my oval inside of my circle. And I have my oval and circle inside of the rectangle, and my rectangle is 7 inches by 5 inches, and that gives me the relative proportions of the average human skull. And even before I start drawing, I'm just going to indicate in here, somewhere in here, that this is where my eye sockets are going to be in here somewhere. So I'm just slightly indicating the idea that the eye sockets are going to be somewhere located in here. I'm going to make them a little smaller to give room to have fit the other features that I'm going to need to. But that's about where my eye sockets are going to be. The nostrils are going to be somewhere there. That socket is going to be somewhere there, and then the teeth is going to be somewhere in here. But now that I'm through guessing, I'm going to actually use I've got a skeleton set up over here, and that's off camera, but I'm going to be using that, and I'm going to use my skeleton to sketch in the features of the bones, the jawline, the teeth, and all of that. So let's get ready for that. The cat ate my homework. Okay, so it didn't eat my homework, and it's not my homework, but the cat did mess up my drawing. So I had it propped up on my studio floor, and she pulled it off. So I started again, and we'll move forward from here now. I've started my skull drawing here of the frontal perspective by first putting it in a 5-inch wide by 7-inch long rectangle, and that allows us to keep with what the basic proportions of the human skull are. I don't need to portray the depth yet, but the depth, as you know, would be 7 inches. And then I've gone through here and I've put a line in the middle of the 5-inch width, and that's at 2.5, or the halfway point. And so that is going to be the center or the axis of symmetry, because basically what's on this side of the face we can expect to see on this side of the face. It is symmetrical to a certain degree from the left to the right when you travel down the if you were to split it on a vertical axis. Well, the other axis, the other halfway point, is 3.5 inches down, and that's basically where the middle of the eye sockets are going to be. And so you can even think of those eye sockets, even look at them now as a cup formation. You can think of that like that, and it'll help you when you start doing your portrait. Think of the eye as or that socket as a cup, and then the eyeball as a ball inside of a cup. Looking at this while you're drawing and analyzing it and studying it that way will help improve your understanding of the human skull as we move forward. So I'm looking at that now, and I've got the eyes basically plotted in here. So I'm going to go in and look a little closer from where I'm sitting. The nasal bone is across here, and it moves a little bit in here. The tip of it, or the apex, comes in through here about at that center where the that axis of symmetry is, and it comes in through here a little like this and moves down, and right about here, a little higher than maybe right here. This is where the top of, let's see if that moves like that. This moves forward like this, splays out a little bit. I think that's about where I can look at that nasal cavity, and I've got the middle of that middle bone going through about right here, and it moves out a little along this axis, the axis of symmetry. It comes out like this. I'm drawing the outer shape of that nasal bone, and then there's bones inside. I feel like it comes down about right here, and it might come down a little wider than this. There's those, the bones are inside like that. So this is, it does come down a little like this and moves like this. I think it's about right there, almost at that, the bottom of the circle, right before it meets the mandible. So I do like to think of, when I draw this, I take the opportunity to study the anatomy of the human skull a little more and think of the parts that I'm drawing and analyze them in terms of what their names are. So this part of the skull here is part of the frontal bone, and it's the frontal bone of the skull that comprises the part of the brow bone, the formation of the brow bone. It moves up a little like this. Over, there's a slight slant to it, tilt. This comes around and has a small formation like that. And I'm just trying to refine the shape according to what I see. If I look here, the nose is a little broader than that. This comes down here, and I've got, if I look at the opening, it really goes out to about here. So I'm moving that out there now that I'm observing it more carefully. This comes in through here, from this point here. There's part of this indentation here in the maxilla. So this is all the maxilla bone, and this comes down here, and I think I may have called it mandible before, but I meant maxilla. So let's go here, and it comes up like this, moves across here a little like that, flattens out a little in through here, and that's where it pitches back up and meets the corner of the eye somewhere over here. So I'm going to put my eyes sockets in like that. This one I'm seeing that little crease in the nasal bone here. Then I've got another piece of the nasal bone forming there. It moves over to here inside of that eye socket. This comes around like this, moves over here, goes a little high and flat here. It has a point about right there, and then that's where it shifts planes and starts moving down towards the side. I get over here, this is part of the like where the sphenoid is going to be behind that. This is part of the frontal bone still. It moves out over here, and so it has two different formations where it forms around the eye, and there's a bony ridge there that I'm seeing. This comes down around here. If I look here, I probably need to make this a little more narrow so that way the proportions fit accurately, and then this moves over there like that. That's about right. There is a bony structure in through here. This moves here, got a little bit of a bony structure behind there. And again, this is something of a ridge here in the bone structure. It moves and joins there. It dips and comes down, and this is part of the structure of the maxilla. We've got this, the this bone around here that forms part of this ridge is the zygomatic, and this comes down about here to the corner. So this is about where the frontal bone is. It opens here and comes out and forms part of that zygomatic there. And this comes down to about the middle, maybe a little lower, and moves around here like this. This is almost at the bottom of that circle where the this is part of the zygomatic still, and that comes down in through here, and it forms a little flare type of thing like this. This is probably goes back a little differently than I've got it. I've got a little piece of the maxilla that I can see. This comes in through here, ties in there. The that moves in through here. Again, come over here to this side. We've got the that bony ridge of the zygomatic. This comes here. It's got forms under there. The parietal is back there behind the zygomatic. This is again part of the zygomatic. And I'm looking at the shadow in the eye socket, and it comes about right through here. And if I look through here, that's about where it ties into the sphenoid bone back there. And I'm just sort of gauging, measuring this with my pencil here. That moves back like that. I've got that, again, that ridge here. This comes down in through here. That zygomatic bone goes out here. So I'm not looking at my skull, my skeleton skull that I'm drawing from. I'm not looking at it exactly. I'm looking at a little too much on this side, so it's not entirely frontal. It's just a little off of frontal, so that's why I'm getting more of the like I've got part of the temporal bone back here that is showing on this side, and it's only showing a little on this side, so it's a slightly off of I'm gonna just twist it so it is okay. I made some adjustments to my skull, the position it was in, so that way it's closer to a true frontal. And I'm just going to move these over just a little bit because that's where I twisted it to be more symmetrical. And it looks like I've got my skeleton is on a slight tilt too, but that's okay. I've got it slightly tilted, the skeleton I'm actually looking at. So this goes over here. I'm going to move this up so it's, and take that here, around here like this, flat down like this, and then talk about this bone. Describe that as it comes in through here. If I look at either side, I've got part of this structure that comes in like this, and it goes down from here, and from here that's part of the structure. It goes back in through here and here, and then remember, you want to think of this as a cylinder. I've got more mass on this side to make it a little more symmetrical. And remember, this is going to come in through here. This is the top of the ridge of the teeth. This comes in down through here, makes this type of opening in here, comes out over like this, and the bottom of that comes and ties in down here. This might be a little too long. I think this, so yeah, I'm gonna push that up just a little. And push it back around like that. So this way I'm gonna have room in that opening to be able to put in teeth. This comes down from here like this, and it goes around like this, drops all the way down here to the bottom of the jaw. This is down here where I've got teeth. Obviously not my teeth, the teeth of my skeleton, and I'm not going to draw all of those teeth in there individually just yet. What I'm going to do is just do more of a suggestion of what the overall form of those teeth, the way they turn. I've got something of an opening in here. They come down to about in through here. I'm not going to worry about the each individual tooth. Again, it comes around in through here. This tilts in just slightly, and then it goes back in through here. This tilts quite a bit in here. A slant that it goes to back there. This comes up like this, tilts like that, and then I've got a set of bottom row teeth. And those come in through here again, where that's about what the bottom of that formation of the jaw. This is where the ball of the chin would be, and through here. This comes down in here and is a little more bony, so I'm just modifying that oval. Again, that oval is just a general shape to build around. So this comes out here. This zygomatic over here comes around like this. I've got that coming through here. This goes a little further down and comes in through here like this. It's got a, this comes down here, folds into there. This comes around here, and it moves a little more like this. And then right underneath here is where that rest of that chin forms, and it's a little thicker than the oval. Again, with the idea that there's a certain sense of symmetry here. This is, again, part of that mandible down here. This comes down here, deviates away from that oval, but again, that oval's a good thing to build the general idea of the skull around. I've got where I can see a little bit of that. Let's see, that temporal, is that the temporal bone? Yeah. And then that comes out a little bit here, and I can see a little bit of that back behind here. So there's the essence of my skeleton here. The frontal bone comes and wraps around here, and it's got a part of that suture comes in through here. This flattens out a little more. My skeleton does. This comes here, comes around like that. That's about right. And then this just deviates off of that circle a little, comes in through here, and it's got a point here at the top of the head, where it comes up to more of a point. And then this comes around. It's got that little hump there. It comes over here, and it's got a something of a squarish. So if I go in through there, that goes here. This comes here. This actually is flatter on mine, and got that sort of a squarish. This comes down here, and over here flattens out. That's a little closer to the skull that I'm actually observing. So I go in there and erase that. Brush some of this off. Brush some of that. Erase a little bit more of that. I'm going to, which one did I like better? I think I liked that outside line is the one I decided on. Then I'm going to stand up and just look at it overall and see what do I think about the general shape of things. See if I like where, see if I feel like I've got the contours right. If I've got things in the right place. This does come down in through here, goes down like that, and that skull goes like that. So I think I can be fairly happy with this skull. I can go back in and put in details in the skull now if I wanted to. This is where I would go back in and put details in and refine some of those shapes. So in here, let's see how much time have I taken to do this. I'm at about 20 minutes in, so that allows me 10 more minutes to work on this, and or even up to 25 more minutes to work on this if I wanted to spend that much time and really get some of these angles tighter. But in the amount of time that we did work on this in 20 minutes, this is what I was able to develop. This is, and I think that's pretty good. So let's go in here, and I'm going to just refine some of these, and we're working with this, is just working primarily with line, and this is just to begin to understand the structure of the skull, how you can look at it in terms of these dimensions, 5 by 7 inches. Start with the most basic of geometric forms, a circle and an oval. So you draw some of the bones on the interior of this. I'm going to make those, if I've got time, I'm going to make them a little lighter. I'm going to erase the middle line now, since I'm doing more details on here. I'm working with my 2B pencil. I could also, I can go in these interior sections with a lighter pencil with a 4H, make the lines lighter, and this way I don't have to worry about moderating pressure quite as much. I can just rely on the nature of the lead in the pencil and make it somewhat organic that way. These are darker because there's a strong sense of shadow that comes in through there, because at this point it's really dipping into that cavity. These are, I can make these a little darker in here too, to describe that sense of the cavity. So I'm going to go back in here and make this a little darker, again, to describe the depth, get a little depth of field established, and describe that outer contour. This comes in through here and it wraps around and does this little circular type of movement. Then there's bones in here and a little bit more of a bony structure in through there. And through here, if I look up through here, I've got, I can put this in a little darker. This is where more of a depth of planes is, so there's more space between that plane and the plane in front of it than the others around. So it presents the opportunity to go darker with these lines. So there's this little sense of the, here in this, above the nasal bone. Over on this side, the way my skeleton is lit, it's slightly darker over here, and then it's got these, a little light bone formation, and so this gets a little darker because it's in shadow. Then I can come in through here and darken that up just a little bit, because again, that's where there is a deep shift in planes, that there's quite a bit of space between this surface and then the next surface behind it. So I can describe that with darker lines. Going in here, this is part of that bony structure where the maxilla meets the zygomatic bone. So I can erase some of this so it's not so uncertain and those lines don't confuse or conflate into my the rest of my drawing. That was a little bit of guesswork, so I'm going to go and take that out now that I feel a little bit more certain about where my lines should be. And I've got both of my pencils in my hand and I'm using them relatively interchangeably. This comes up, and just looking at this in through here, it does this. This on this corner is where it makes this little structure in through here, and this is all in shadow, and this is dark in here too. This is, then I look all the way up here and there's another area in here in shadow. This is a lot smaller. I'm going to take that and erase some of that out and look at what the relative proportions of the shape I was trying to draw. So I erased it out because I felt like I was getting a little too large with the spacing. So I got rid of it because the relative proportions didn't quite work out right. So, and I'm just looking at like the relative proportions of this bony structure compared to where its relative proportions to the overall eye socket, and I had gone like just much too big with my initial guess, so I'm going back in and making that smaller. Here is where this goes into shadow, and that's part of the brow bone that wraps around here, and it does some little soft movement in through here. This is indicative of where the brow bone would be. This comes back down around here and wraps down around to this eye and ties in right about slightly before the where that eye socket, the orbit, changes direction, and then it moves back down this direction, goes to the corner, and almost does like a square kind of formation. It gets a lot more linear and a lot less curvy. And this comes down here, and I feel pretty comfortable with that. That goes in through here. This moves in through here. This is a soft formation in here, but this is actually where there's a lot more room. Let me get back to my station point because it's really easy to move around. And so just getting back to my station point, just one way to check to make sure that I'm at the right place is just I look at, say, some of the things that I've already drawn there and think of them as a fixed point. This is part of the behind the orbital plate is where the nerves of the eyes go through these openings in here. So there's these little deep openings back here, and that is where our body allows the nerves to be located. So this is fairly strong in here again because it represents a really deep shift in plane from this edge to the next edge. It gets a little softer in here, and then these bones in here are a little softer in there, but then this is again where it represents that dark ridge over here, and this comes down and moves like that. So I can make this in here a lot darker too because it represents a greater shift in planes or distance between this edge and the next visible edge. These little formations might be a little too long. That's why they invented the eraser, is to get in there and modify things if you see that you've gone a little off scale with a particular element. So this does come in through here, and there's this formations in here. This is where the eyeball would sit in there. So that's in there like that. This is part of a shadow that moves in through there. There's a roundish formation that comes in through here. This bone in through here comes, and it is part of the frontal bone. This comes around here and has this bony ridge surface. Again with the, that goes there. That zygomatic bone comes out here, and there's a little bit of a ridge in through here. It moves out again here, comes down here, and has a little bit of a turn to it where it moves down like this, comes in through here, forms a nice cheekbone, and that is where it comes in right in through here and here, and it's at this ridge where the bone does a little bit of a shift again, moves over to here, and this does come in a little, and this flares back out just a little, and this is the back of the where the gum line would fall, and we've got teeth that come in through there. That gum line falls down there, and this comes through here. Let's look at that. Comes in through here, goes in through here, and then this definitely curves up and this curves down. This comes around and does that. The back teeth here hyperextend the back, so the back of the bottom of the teeth are just slightly further out than the top teeth. This goes around like this, where it extends here. That's the top of that bone, and this comes around, and this is inside of the bone here. This comes over here and moves down a lot more vertically and comes down in and ties in through here, and then that's going to force me to put this a little lower and look at this, the way this formation comes down here and comes across here just a little differently. And looking at that, this goes in through here, comes out. This does go here and ties into the back of the teeth in the back. And this comes around and is part of the bony jaw structure down here. This comes all the way down here, comes in like this, comes around like this, and this goes down a little bit more like that. This goes in up like that, got a little bit of shadow there, comes around like that. Let's see, from here to here, go all the way back here, and I've got a little bit of a bony structure there, and in through here, this comes and is shaped a little bit more like that. I'm going to go back in there and erase some of these lines, clean it up again. Clean this up. Let's see that. What did I say? This goes down around here. This comes down, and this does go around to here and moves out. It flares out just a little, comes here and has a little structure in through there. This moves down. Let me get rid of my eraser here. This moves down around through here. There is a little tiny structure in through here like this. This does come down around, does this type of thing, and has a little bit of another ridge, and this comes here, so that makes these slant just a little bit more. And I'm leaving in where you can see the circle, and that's just, you don't have to leave that in, but I'm just leaving that in just for the purposes of you being able to see how this structure is built around those basic forms that we put in at first. This comes down, and this is it's a little bit too dark over there. I probably needed my my skeleton lit just a little better. This comes here and it makes a slight little out dent here, comes up like this and makes a couple formations like that. This comes down here and it contours in there a little. I'm going to clean this line up, make it not so sketchy. And and clean this line up. Get rid of a little bit of the sketchiness of it. So this does come back like this. This bone is back here and pitches in a little bit like that. Let's go in and clean that up. Let's see, clean this up in here. And I'm going to leave that one just a little messy, just to I've erased a little bit of the circle out. So, but let's look at this over here a little and make this look a little bit more like my actual reference. This comes down in through here, and I'm going to erase some of this stuff out here because it's just too many lines. Looks like I'm disappearing my circle out, but that's okay. So let's see, I need to decide on what's happening here in this bone structure in through here. This does come in like this and moves around the eye and does this little bony structure in through here. This moves, it's got a little tiny lump back there, and then it moves and comes out and flares out a little and then moves almost in a horizontal manner. This comes in and it flares out a little. This down here has a little contour here. Right behind this bone there is the sphenoid bone that we're seeing. So putting that sphenoid in there, it comes in about right there and goes around like that. That is about the shape it makes. This is where the skull goes out here and dips in a little through here and then piles back up through there. So I'm refining that contour a little bit more, making it look a little bit more like my skeleton that I'm using as my reference. So I'm going to go back in and clean this line up to make this a nice hard edge. This comes in through here. And clean that line up so it's not so sketchy. Get rid of my excess eraser debris. Come back in here and just reassert just a nicer, cleaner, more organic line. Feel okay with that. Come in through here. This is make that one fairly dark in through there. Another dark one in through there. Just describing more of a harder surface. Take that in and clean these lines up. I'm going to leave all of that scratchiness down there, but clean up this bottom line underneath here. I'm going to leave that scratchiness in because there's just a lot of movement happening on that part of the skull. I'm going to go out here and clean up that line a little bit. And this is another really nice hard opening in here. This is a relatively hard edge. So I'm going to go in here and describe this with a little bit more of a dark line. This goes in here like this and has a little bit of a fold in here, again with there being quite a bit of distance between that edge and the next visible edge. So that one gets really nice and dark too. This can come over a little flatter in through here. This comes down like this, and it's got a little bony structure that flattens in through here. Clean this up a little. And let's see, this comes down from the side over here. Underneath here this is another little bony ridge structure as part of the nasal bone in through here. This structure comes in through here and goes down like that. This comes up through here and makes a little formation in here. This goes down here, and this winds up being the like the center of the teeth right there, and then this is the ridge line where the teeth reside along there. So I'm going to make a little suggestion of where the teeth are, but not really get into drawing the entire each little tooth. So I've got the out here, this comes out here from about this side over here. This could probably be a little longer, and this is where the that part of the maxilla there joins, and that hits the that little incisor tooth right there at the side. This comes in here, and it's got like a little teeny tiny gap in there, and then it moves over, and so it comes around on here, and this moves in through here, and it's got a this other tooth comes in and it slants in just a little there, and put a small indication of, again, over here where the just indicate just a slight space in between the teeth, and even in here it's already getting a little too pronounced, so I'm going to go in there and lift that just a little, so I don't have just, it doesn't get too overly heavy and look too crazy and like a picket fence. I don't want that to happen. Then down here these twist a little down here and move a little bit like this. So I'm just going to indicate that just slightly. The teeth in the bottom are a little on the crooked side, and they go off center just a little, and I can indicate where they meet the jawbone down here. This moves in like that, this moves over here, and then this tooth over here really slants in and meets that tooth there. And that's really about all of the indication I want to do of these teeth. You really don't want to do too much detail here in your teeth. You can separate them out just a little, indicate them just with like maybe just an invitation for the viewer to move their eye down that line, but don't go in and do them like all super pronounced. There's just no need to get into that kind of detail, and then it really makes the teeth look like picket fences instead of what they really should look like, and that's teeth. So just keep that nice and soft and suggestive in there. Don't outline each tooth. Do not outline each tooth. Do not outline each tooth. Just do a soft indication, if anything at all, of where the tooth meets the jawbone and and the shape it makes as it meets that jawbone. But again, don't get into where you're doing each tooth and you're putting a line down all the way. Just you put a small indication of where it meets the jawline, and then you can put, if anything, you can put another small indication of that goes in there, and this goes all the way to here. This comes down here, and it does tilt in, and it goes from here to here, back here. So just put a small indication of what the shadow shape that it makes as the two rows of teeth meet. Just put a small indication of that shape in through here, where there's the gap between the teeth is indicated with air. And this comes down over here, and so I can put that there. And that's really about all the indication of teeth that I want to put in there. This comes down here, and this does make a strong line back here, so I can put that there. This comes down here, and again it meets the bottom row of teeth there, comes back up, and this is another strong edge. This can come in here, and it hyperextends down into there. This bone moves in through here. This comes out through here. This is it does curve a little in through here, and comes down around. This is a little flat in through here. Comes up, meets here, and I will go and darken that. There, this is goes here just a little. This is strong in through here. Back in here is this does come in through here like this. This goes more like this. Over to here, comes here, and come down around here, and bulge this out just a little, and I've got myself a frontal skull. A little bit more indication of a tooth here, because that's what I want to do, and make these a little darker so they move a little forward in space. Move that up here, come down through there. All right, so that is going to be my frontal skull. I am calling it. And my next video will be the skull and side profile. I went back in for about 5 minutes and refined the drawing, and this is it.